This is Open Parley Live. This is Open Parley Live. This is Open Parley Live. This is Open
Parley Live here on Open Parley. My name is Lynette Manzini. Thank you very much for joining us. In today's conversation, we take a look at ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF will be holding its annual conference in a few days from today. And this conference is normally confused with the ZANU-PF Congress. So the conference is an annual conference and the Congress is held every 5 years. So they will be conveying in Bulawayo. But ahead of this conference, you know, the issues of succession issues of third term that have been awash in the media, and also Petrol bombing of ZANU-PF officials' properties. What does this mean? Should we be concerned as Zimbabweans, ahead of this conference? Joining me today to discuss this topic is Tatenda Mareza. She is a political analyst based in Harare. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynette. How are you today?
Thank you very much for joining us. I'm fine and hope you're too. And also joining us is political analyst Mr. Wilbert Mukori. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Annette and Lynette. And welcome to the listeners wherever you are in the world.
Thank you very much. So I don't know where to start, but we'll start with a video we're going to start with the issues around succession. President Mangagos has been on record saying that he has this is his second term, and after his second term, he's going to step down. But let's watch this video first before we dive deep. We dive in deeper.
Constitution after every 5 years tunaenda ku Congress. Takaita Congress yetu about 5 years. Every 5 years tunaenda ku Congress, adidi? Tunaenda Congress ikoko to serve the president wetu. President wetu anafanya machema mawili 5 years, 5 years. Indakata 5 years okutanga ngapera kana Congress mukanidzorera. So ndakuita my last 5 years tapera manje ndoenda kuzorora. Toenda ku Congress mosaka umwe anotunamira chitevedzera tsoka dzangu maziwa mazuva angu kuzorora pedo China kunozorora toenda ku Congress kotsvaka anotevedza tsoka dzangu dzamunhu mutaka mozvinzwa ndakuruma nzeve. Tomorrow is our future, which we must constitution yedu inotiyo after every 5 years tunaenda ku.
Okay, so that was President Emerson Mnangagwa talking about the party constitution, and also talking about how he is now in his second term and he will be stepping down, and the party will be looking for someone to take his place. Mr. Mukori, what do we know about succession issues in ZANU-PF?
Lynette, this is laughable. When was the ZANU-PF constitution changed? Because the last president was in power for 37 years. Now we are being told it is 2 5-year terms. this is just the usual political rhetoric. Everyone knows that there are no democratic elections in ZANU-PF. And as much as the present restriction is caused more by the national constitution, which is distinct from the ZANU-PF constitution, for him to be saying he honors the national constitution is also another joke. Because if he honors the constitution, then he should have been holding free, fair, and credible elections. 2018 elections were not free, fair, and credible. Last year's elections were not free, fair, and credible. And his own succession to succeed Mugabe, was that constitutional? I think people of Zimbabwe know clearly that this is just a way of trying to take the sting out of this whole thing while he thinks of how best he can remain in power. I don't see him being seriously committed to leaving power. So to me, this is just a political game that they play within ZANU-PF.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkore. And I normally say, ye men of little faith, but you always prove me wrong. And Tatenda, what are your thoughts? President Emmerson Mnangagwa talks about succession. Mr. Mkore says there's never been issues to do with succession in ZANU-PF. The last president was there for over, 30 years. What are your thoughts regarding President Mnangagwa's utterances?
Look, I think I understand why Mr. Mnangagwa would insist on having this, conversation and control the conversation around succession, because this is dangerous talk just 1 year into his presidency. We're already discussing, or rather his party seems to be, running a different narrative and already talking about 2030 and so forth. I think Mr. Mnangagwa is being true to personality, that he says one thing and then behind closed doors he does another. It was the same thing with the Lacoste faction leading up to 2017 coup, that he said he was not, looking to succeed Mr. Mugabe. He was not looking to take over the leadership of the party. But events of November 2017 tell us a very different story. So we are having the same situation where strategic members within ZANU-PF and strategic groups within ZANU-PF are already pushing the 2030 narrative. And then, of course, on the national platform, and of course, within certain sections, he's also communicating that he does not want to take over. So this is very problematic, and this is very much true to, sorry about that. This is very much true to personality and character of Mr. Mnangagwa. It's going to be a cat and mouse. It's going to be a song and dance for a very long time until the final day when he has no option but to vacate the office. I do think the reason why he's changing goalposts and why we're having a conversation around 2030 and 2030 Aningachiripo is because himself was not necessarily the most electable candidate. And so is the successor. I do believe he was not, the arrangement that may have existed with those that put him in power was to at least, resign before the end of his term. So the reason why he's insisting on a 2030 agenda is to ensure that people may continue, or he may continue on until he finishes his term. I don't think he wants a third term. I think he's trying to fight to finish this particular term. Hello?
Okay, so you don't think that he wants a third term. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I think we have a delay from my end. I seem to have poor network, but thank you very much for that. So for those joining us online, we're talking about succession issues in the ZANU-PF party. And if you want to be a part of this conversation, feel free to get into the comment section and let us know what you think. Our two guests here are saying, there's no succession to talk about in ZANU-PF. One president was president for over 3 decades. And, and then Tatenda says that maybe Mnangagwa doesn't want a third term. Mr. Mkori, supposing President Mnangagwa doesn't want the third term, but then there are people that are chanting 2030 Anenge Achiripa. What are the political implications of this? And your understanding and the history of ZANU-PF, do you think that there's something in the works?
Well, as for wanting it, he wants it. He may not succeed. There are economic, political, and social pressures on him. Let's not forget that the 2017 military coup was necessary in the sense that the Zimbabwe economy was in total economic meltdown, and millions of people were already living in abject poverty. And the party, even Mugabe himself, if he was honest, he would have told you this is socially, politically, and economically unsustainable. So he himself knew this need for change. The only problem with ZANU-PF is that they are not willing to accept change. So Mugabe tried to hang on to power desperately, and the party itself, people like Mnangagwa, realized that the longer this continues, the more certain it will be that there will be change. So the question is, we can bring about that change ourselves.
If I can jump in there, Mr. Mkori, if I can stop you there a bit. You say that President Mnangagwa may want a third term, but it's not possible because of the political implications. How different is this situation from Robert Mugabe's time? Because the economy was also on its knees during that time, but he held on to power. What's the difference now?
No, the economic situation is even worse now. Let's be honest. The economy has never improved in the last 7 years since Mnangagwa took over. It has continued its nosedive. If anything, it's actually worse now. The only advantage that Mnangagwa had is that people felt that, okay, let's give him time to achieve change. And he has ever since been involved in a serious campaign, propaganda campaign, to try to convince people that things are getting better. I think the conference that we are talking about has already started, as far as I know, and in one of his speeches at the opening of that conference was that there was progress. The truth of the matter is you cannot rig economic progress the way you rig the economy. He can talk all he wants that there is economic recovery. There is no economic recovery. In the last few weeks alone, the ZIG has collapsed, and now it's on its way on the downward trend. The economy, Lynette, is getting worse, and that is the reality. And this is the reality that he himself has got to face. The only thing about Mnangagwa is he wants to use force to retain power, and is warning his people that he is willing to use force. That is the difference.
Okay, let's bring in Tatenda. Tatenda, Mr. Mkori says, you said that maybe President Emmerson Mnangagwa is not interested in a third term, but Mr. Mkori argues that he is interested, but then what won't get him into the third term is the economic situation. He talks about the ZIG that has nosedived and, the economy that's on its knees. I want you to give us your perspective. I've asked him this question before to say the economy was also doing pretty badly during Robert Mugabe's time, especially, towards the end of his reign. But he remained in power. Within ZANU-PF, do you think that the membership is interested in how the economy is performing? And will that, affect, is anything to do with leadership within the party?
Well, I think the economic situation is getting worse. And the only problem with ZANU-PF is that they are not willing to accept change. So the only problem with ZANU-PF is that they are not willing to accept change.
within the party?
Well, absolutely. I mean, elements in ZANU-PF are definitely concerned. I mean, I've had different conversations, numerous conversations with people that are in ZANU-PF, and they're echoing the same concerns. They are equally clear that things are a lot harder than they were. The very interesting thing that happened during the 2017 coup was, the statement by General S.B. Moyo when he said, we are targeting the criminals around Robert Mugabe, which has now become the exact situation that Mr. Mnangagwa finds himself in. He's surrounded by a particular group of people that are benefiting, but not necessarily the rest of the party or the rest of the membership. Everyone else in ZANU-PF is going through the same problems that we are going through. So the party is definitely divided, and it will get a lot more divided as we get closer to the end of this term. I agree with the previous speaker. Sorry, that when he said Mr. Mnangagwa would want a third term, he would absolutely, but he's also cognizant of the limitations and the complications around that. So I'm not shocked with the bombing and the violence that is popping up even within the party itself. I'm not shocked when you see videos of regalia that is being made in the general's name. I'm not shocked when you see the difference in persona or even appearance, how for the past considerable amount of time the general has moved away from having the scarf and is trying to brand himself in his own way. So it's definitely a party that is divided as it stands. It's nothing new to ZANU-PF. The only difference between ZANU-PF and the opposition is that ZANU-PF is deliberate in their attempt or pursuit of power. They always try to ultimately find common ground and say, look, this is what we want ultimately, and they find themselves somehow. Yes, there will be casualties, as is the case in most political battles, but ZANU-PF tends to really have a proper structural and maybe ideological base to pull from. But the party is definitely divided, and it's evident with, Petrol bombings to the Harare, provincial leader. That is worrying. That is an escalation of people wanting to come out in the shadows, coming out of the shadows, and it's now, the battlefield is now coming to the forefront. So it's going to be a very interesting conference. It's going to be an interesting few years, but what is going to be consistent is Mr. Mnangagwa saying one thing, whilst this faction is saying another thing, and it's very shocked every time, like, why are they saying that? Where are they getting that idea from? But we know where they're getting the idea from.
I remember even with the late President Robert Mugabe, he would say, like he would say that if you want him to remain in power, if the people want him to stay, then who is he to refuse? So maybe that's exactly what's happening to President Emmerson Mnangagwa. So in case you're just joining us, you are tuned into Open Party Live here on Open Party. My name is Lynette Manzini. Thank you very much for joining us. Joining me online, our political analyst, Mr. Wilbert Mukori, and Tatenda Mariza. And we are talking about ZANU-PF succession issues, Petrol bombing, and whether we should be concerned about these issues. Let us know what you think about the issues we're discussing in the comment section. Tatenda brought up the issue about factions within ZANU-PF. Let's listen to this video. Let's listen to Christopher Mchangwa speaking.
Strong, it was quite evident yesterday that everyone was on the same page. The whole leadership, the presidium, the Politburo, there was a fervent call for us to be united. Remember, this is a part of basically cadres who have been together for the past 40 to 60 years together over here. So sometimes we hear a lot of hot air on the social media. The hot air balloon was punched yesterday. There's nothing like all the supposed to be rancor which is existing in ZANU-PF. There was nothing of it. It was all with orange and so much unity. Because who have lost clout within ZANU-PF, and they are in exile, and they are using the advent of social media to create impression on the internet. ZANU-PF is not run on social media. ZANU-PF is a solid party with 60 to 70 years of existence. It has fought every psychological warfare in existence, and won in war and in peace. So that what air balloon was punched yesterday, there was absolute unity and calmness among the membership.
Mr. Mkori, Christopher Mchanga here says that the hot air balloon was busted. The party members are united and there's peace. And he says that, there are a lot of issues that are on social media, and he's saying that they're not true. Your thoughts?
I think anyone who listened to that will be laughing and saying, well, if there was some division within the party, would he admit it? The answer is no. This is a party that is known for sweeping or silencing all voices of dissent. The truth of the matter is, ZANU-PF has stifled all means of peaceful democratic change. And the only option you have when you stop peaceful change is violence. Mugabe would not accept free, fair, and credible elections. And Mnangagwa himself was at the forefront of that. And they kept in power by rigging elections, by using wanton violence. But ultimately, even they had to accept that he had to go. I think we have reached the same point with Mnangagwa, and he knows it. He can pretend all he likes. There are factions in ZANU-PF. The factions have always been there. In fact, ZANU-PF is like an amoeba. The minute it is divided, and you think, okay, fine, now they've divided. Let's see, we've got Lacoste in power. Within a few months, it emerges that they are already dividing. After the 2017 military coup, what emerged? Mnangagwa was president. He appointed VP Chiwenga as his number 2. And a number of VP Chiwenga loyalists in cabinet. And it was clear even then that the agreement when they agreed on the coup was that VP Chiwenga Mnangagwa will stay for 1 term and VP Chiwenga will take over. And when they held the elections in 2018, Mnangagwa saw to it that VP Chiwenga was isolated. The cabinet was, all the VP Chiwenga loyalists were wiped out. Only Mnangagwa loyalists were in. Is that a united party? No. He is just imposing, he's consolidating his hold on power. And VP Chiwenga right now is trying to stage a fight back. That is the reality. But what matters most here is that the people of Zimbabwe themselves are waking up to the reality that this economic meltdown is unsustainable, socially, economically, and politically. We cannot go on like this. The corruption has reached new heights. No nation can survive at this rate. We are being dragged deeper and deeper into this abyss. And unfortunately, the only way out, the way Mnangagwa is keeping, maintaining pressure, threatening anyone who tries to voice any dissent, is that there's going to be an explosion in the force. This time, last time, the military coup, there was maybe little bloodshed. But can you guarantee that that will not happen again? But I can tell you now that we will have a violent end to this regime. How else are you going to end it?
Let's bring in Tatenda there. Tatenda, Mr. Mkori talks of violence, and that scares me because I'm in the capital city, we're all here in Zimbabwe where it's happening. Mr. Mkori is safe where he is, but there were 2 explosions that occurred last week. So unfortunately, I can't put up the article, but I'll just read a little bit. So this was from the Zimbabwe Mail. In a dramatic turn of events in Zimbabwe's political landscape, the business offices of ZANU-PF Harare provincial chairperson Goodwill Masimirembwa were targeted in a petrol bomb attack, raising tensions within the ruling party as the succession battle intensifies between President Emmerson Mnangagwa and Vice President Constantino Chiwenga. That's one of the bombings. The second one was ZANU-PF Harare Deputy Chairperson Ephraim's house in the capital city was petrol bombed on Monday by unknown assailants. What do you make of this, Tatenda? And is this the violence that Mr. Mukori is referring to? And earlier on, you said that you brought in the issue of these petrol bombs, and you said it's going to be an interesting time ahead. And maybe if you can explain to us what interesting means. Is it violence?
Well, yes, part of it will be, marked by violence, unfortunately. But that is the nature of ZANU-PF. I was on a space recently, and people were saying, we were talking about ZANU-PF, people within ZANU-PF, and but some of us are relatives, and don't you feel bad when they're going through things? And I said, we might feel bad, and we might feel some empathy, sympathy, but the truth of the matter is, when you lay with the dogs, do not be shocked when you come up with the fleas. It really is an occupational hazard. Dealing with ZANU-PF is extreme sport. But also the same thing, and I don't know why people choose to be oblivious to this. ZANU-PF's only tool has always been a hammer. They've only been able to practice violence against its opponents. So naturally, when there's conflict within its own camp, it's also going to use the only tool at its disposal, which is violence. So Magapeza, when they're done bewitching the neighbors' kids, they'll come and bewitch their own children. So ZANU-PF is definitely going to go through some interesting seasons marked by extreme violence. I mean, this is the two top leaders of the party being attacked. It doesn't get more coincidental than that. It doesn't get more calculated or planned than that. So this is a reflection, and like I said, this is just the beginning of a 4-year period, or 3-year period campaign to understand what the leadership of ZANU-PF is going to look like beyond the stage. So it's worrying, truly, and the rate or the level at which the violence is starting is scary, because normally we understand it's normally the low level players that suffer these attacks. But if you're going to the highest members in terms of leadership of the party in Harare province, that is definitely a show of power, a show of strength. Whoever is behind these attacks is not hiding, is not trying to look like they don't have capacity to bring on a full-on, war against perceived enemies within the different camps. So it's quite strange, because it's happening right in the open air. Even the attacks that happened with Mnangagwa's son, the deputy minister, not too long ago, and then this happens. It seems there are elements within ZANU-PF that are now fully capacitated to practice or show violent nature and violent tendencies against its own leaders. So it's a very, but I suppose when you understand the fact that you've got a faction that is led by the military, and you've got another faction, a civilian faction, you would understand that a military faction will perhaps be militarized. I'm not saying they're the ones behind it, but I'm saying, there's a possibility that one has more access to violence than the other. Just a thought. Let me put as many disclaimers.
Yes.
as possible.
Yes, it's just a thought. And let's just get into the comment section. So let us know what you think about the issues that we're discussing here today. And thank you to Brighton. Brighton here from Matebelele says, we would love VP Chiwenga to come in by any means. Chamisa has disappointed us as youths. You have to be in the ZANU-PF structures for you to decide this, Brighton. And, you have to go to Congress. Mr. Mukori, how worried, how concerned should the public be about the factions, about the succession issues? I know, sometimes people say, it's a ZANU-PF issue, let them handle their own issues. But should the public and the international community be concerned?
Well, every Zimbabwean should be concerned about what is happening. The country cannot continue the way we have been going for the last 44 years. We've been destroying the country economically, politically, because politically we are in a paralysis. I agree with Brighton there that the Chamisa has disappeared. Let's be honest, the opposition is all but dead. That is one of the root problems with our Zimbabwean politics, where the ruling party has proven beyond all reasonable doubt that it is corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical. And yet, we cannot find an alternative. Why? Because the system itself does not allow any meaningful alternative to emerge. There's been, I think it's well documented, that ZANU-PF has invested a lot of money to undermine all the various state institutions, the judges, the judiciary, the police, ZEC, and so forth, including the opposition. So we cannot move as a nation. And this issue of, VP Chiwenga, we would want him, this is an act of desperation. Just as much as in 2017, people welcomed the coup, the military coup, because they were saying to themselves, we have had 37 years of Mugabe, and we could not remove him. But that is the problem with the political system that is not able to correct itself. So I think the worrying there is there. And as a people, of course, we are worried. I mean, let's face it, Zimbabweans have been scattered to all the ends of the world because they could not live in Zimbabwe. Just to survive, you could not do so. Look at what is happening with the zinc right now. Some people are projecting that now they've finally admitted that it's not working. We are going to see now an accelerated devaluation of the zinc. We are going back to what we were in 2008, when people's savings were wiped out. That is where we are going. I mean, at the present moment, you say to yourself, if you are 40 years old, if whatever you had saved these last 20 years when you were working, if it's going to be wiped out again, where are you going to be? The generation, at least of the who started working soon after independence, were able to accumulate some assets. But the generation of the last 20 years have not accumulated anything. So they've been living from hand to mouth. And if the economy collapses again, where will they be? That is what we are looking at here. And of course,
sad issues that you raised there, Mr. Mkori, and it's even affecting me, the host of this show. I'm even feeling stressed by just, listening to the issues that you raised, which are actually true. But unfortunately, I have to bring in, not unfortunately, because of time, I have to bring in Tatenda. Tatenda, what can civil society, the media, or individuals do in preparation? I don't know what we are preparing for, really, because these are succession issues, factional issues within ZANU-PF. Because Mr. Mkori said every individual needs to be concerned. So should we just be concerned and stay put at home? What role can everybody else play?
You sound like a doomsday prepper, like perhaps we should be in our bunkers with our food supply for the next 6 months. Well, I think the best preparation that we need to have as Zimbabweans or as a country is, number one, honest conversations about our current political discourse. I think we have to accept that whatever trajectory, whatever path we are on is not going to take us anywhere, whether with ZANU-PF or the opposition. If my message to the opposition was, this is the time where they deal with the most important or the most challenging issue, that they've had to date, which is structures and system, political identity, dogma. Yes, there's been some disappointment with the CCC party that went up to 2023 elections, but I'm definitely not writing, President Nelson Chamisa out. He's still the best candidate we have. The only thing that I would want to see differently is a strong and solid party of people that, not this coalition business. I see some other people have also been throwing around those, let's just put our differences aside. Let's agree that the differences are so vast and so deep that there's no patchwork that can be done to create a party that can stand against ZANU-PF. We need civil society to be a bit more vocal. We need every citizen to be concerned with the nature and the status of ZEC, and be deliberate in our request for an authentic, for a ZEC that reflects the will of the people, a constitutional ZEC. The silence that just happened after Mike Shimombe and his friend were arrested, but we actually completely forgot about the reason, or the biggest trigger, which was their participation in election, in the whole election process. How much money was made, and how much people that were competing in the elections were also the same people that were in charge of procuring the materials for the elections. So many irregularities. Even what we are seeing in the SADC region elections, our participation in Mozambique, it seems we have found a niche market, and our niche market is rigging elections. That's what we are good at as a country. It's worrying. Namibia also is having issues. Even South Africa itself, the issues that they had with their past election were said to be, tricks of the trades that they learned from their relationship with Zimbabwe. So, a lot has to change systematically for the country, for the region of SADC as well, even for the SADC body itself. There is it's a disaster, for lack of a better description.
Thank you very much. And I think you have brought out very interesting issues that maybe we should discuss next week, issues to do with how the opposition should forge ahead.
Hello?
Sorry, I think I interrupted you. You can go ahead. I thought you were done speaking. I think my internet had dropped.
Okay, that's okay. I think we just need to be an issue-based country. What is our issue? ZEC is not free and fair. How do we deal with the free and fairness of ZEC without it being a political issue? So I think as Zimbabweans, if we can move away from bipartisan or political lines or political identities, and we stick to the issues and we address our problems from an issue perspective, I think that will also contribute to unifying a very fractured voice.
Okay, so let's stick to our issues. Mr. Mkori, in 30 seconds, your final words.
Well, I think it is tragic that we have failed to govern ourselves. To me, that is the most disappointing thing in Zimbabwe today. 44 years after independence, and we still cannot even hold free, fair, and credible elections. That is tragic. And I think it really speaks volumes to every Zimbabwean. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to, whether in the country or you are in the diaspora. The fact still remains that we are Zimbabwean and we've failed to govern ourselves. That is tragic.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mkori. And I'd like to thank those that are joining us online. There's a comment there from Sam. Sam says, we just need a leader who is not led by the West or the East. We're tired of bootlickers of leaders. Thank you very much. Thank you to all those that joined us online and those that are going to watch this afterwards. I'd like to thank my guests, Tatenda Mareza and Mr. Wilbert Mukori. They're political analysts. Thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, my name is Lynette Manzini. Goodbye.
This is Open Parley Live.